Alright, this is a ModFreakz installation video for a Gen 5 controller using a Gen 4 front shell. Again, this is a Gen 4 front shell, so we're going to have to make a modification to their shell to get it to work properly for this controller. And I'm going to show you how. First of all, they have their little insert cards, and they give you a screwdriver and some extra little thumbstick grips. We got it nicely packaged with bubble wrap and some cellophane to keep it from getting scratched up. But this is our Gen 4 faceplate. Again, this is not for this controller. I'm going to show you how to modify this to make it work for this controller. To see what generation controller you have, you can actually go to modfreakz.com/pages/PS4 models. I'll provide that link in the description right to that link, and you're going to look where it has made in China right here. And there's a little number right above it. With that number, you will look at their chart and figure out which generation controller you have for PlayStation, which will help you purchase, the right shell. So I do want to show how to modify the Gen 4 faceplate for the Gen 5 controller. It's not a very hard or difficult process. What we're going to do is we're going to get our screwdriver set first off. They provide it for you, so it's very handy. We're going to take out these back 4 screws. You're going to start taking your original controller apart so that you can get this front faceplate put on. Do not lose your screws. Set them to the side. You kind of have to pry the sides open at the bottom first. And then once you get those off, you should be able to pry this open. It's going to take a little bit of force. Don't be scared, but try not to pull too fast and too hard, because there's a ribbon strip inside here, and I'll show it to you in a second. The ribbon strip that holds the back for your light bar to your motherboard. You're going to disconnect that right next to the battery. All you got to do is pull up on it, and it will come right off. We're going to set this aside because we really don't need this right now. So we'll set that aside. Okay, the next step is going to be to remove this battery. You do not want this flopping around while you're messing with it. So you can actually pull it up. Don't grab it by the wire. Grab it by the white plastic that goes in. And just wiggle it side to side until it comes out of there. If you pull it by the wire, you're going to rip the wire out of that connector, and you're going to have to reseat it. Okay, then you're going to have to remove this screw that's holding the battery casing in place. It also holds your motherboard down. So we will remove that, set it to the side. Remember what screws go where. This comes right off. Now that that is off, we should be able to remove the touchpad from the board. There's a little blue tab right here you can actually grab a hold of with your finger. Pretty sure you can see it right here. It's a piece of plastic, and it's actually pretty sturdy. You want to pull up in this direction so that it slides right out of there. Remember, this is for the touchpad. You have to pull that off there, or you can end up ripping it. And once you get that out of there, the rest should come up pretty easy on its own. Once you get it out of there, and then it comes apart. So this we're going to set aside for now. We do not need that right now. Now we need the light bar, the rubber, the buttons, and all that stuff. So we're going to take the light bar off first. All you got to do is kind of tilt it, and it should come right out. We'll set that to the side. your PlayStation button, pull the rubber off, pop your button out. Your D-pad, pull the rubber right off, pop your D-pad out. Same as your buttons. Pull that off, and here's your buttons. Now, these buttons are designed to fit where they belong. So, I mean, they will not go in there unless they're seated where they belong. So, if you want, you can take and line them up just like this, so you know what button goes in what position. If it makes it easier on you. It may not. So that's the old original front shell, completely disassembled, and no longer need this. So we will set this to the side. Now we need to make some modifications to this shell. Now the problem here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but let's see if we can get a view. Notice where this post is on this controller. There's a post right here. And it's towards the top of that hole and in the middle about where the D-pad is. Okay, now notice where the post is on the other controller. It's right here. There's your hole and there's your D-pad. But it's actually lower than it should be. So we're going to modify this. And what you want to do is you want to grab this post and just go ahead and snap it off there. Just remove it completely. And do the same to the post on this side. Remove that completely off there. Just snap it off. So now these are completely off there. We don't need those. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of those. What they are is they, just so you can see, they actually go in this hole here and on the other side in this hole here. Again, it's going to be right here. And if I can get the right angle, right there. It's kind of like a stabilization for the board. But once the board is seated in there correctly, you won't really need it. So it's not going to really matter to break them off. We'll go ahead and start inserting our buttons back where they belong, exactly the way they came out. And then for the buttons and the D-pad, there's two rubbers. They look completely different. They're two different ones. One has bigger holes and one has smaller holes. One is shaped different with a flat side, whereas this one's, they're just different shapes altogether. The one with the big holes is for the buttons. This one's for the D-pad. So we will go ahead and insert this back on. To insert this, there's these little holes. You can't really see them, but there's little holes and little pins. Make sure that they're firmly pressed. The rubber is firmly pressed in those little holes, or else you may have problems with your buttons later. So get that rubber on those little posts. I'm going to show you another modification to this we're going to have to do with the PlayStation button. But first we're going to go ahead and get the D-pad and the buttons in there. Do the same thing. Rinse and repeat. Us gamers, I'll tell you. Okay, now for the PlayStation button. Get her seated in there. Now there's a problem with the PlayStation button as well. On the original, see if I can get this in the camera here. The post, there's a little tiny post right here that holds that rubber piece on the controller. Notice the placement of this one. It's up towards the top of the curve here. Now on the new controller, the post is actually halfway down. It's right here. It's not up here like the other one. So we have to get this rubber, which originally has holes towards the top, to fit. In order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to line it up perfectly so that the edge of the top of this lines up with the edge on the outside of the speaker box. And then we're just going to push it down. If you push it down with your nails, you should be able to create a new hole there. You know, it might help if I turn it up the right way too. It was upside down on me. And you push it down with your nails and make a new hole with the rubber. Do the same on both sides. So we get that in there. If I can get it to line up here. That'll hold your button in place and should allow you to push your buttons to press correctly. Get that back on there. There we go. Rip through that rubber. The other side. Okay. So now that's on there. So when you push the PlayStation button, it'll properly make contact. Yeah, you have to modify this a little bit to get it to fit, but it will fit. Okay, then we're going to insert our, almost forgot, we need to get our touchpad back on there. Now it's important to make sure that this strip is sitting in an upright position, because you need to install that back into this. I'll show you in a minute. It's in an upright position. Then you're going to take it from the inside of the controller down in, like so. So it sits directly like that, so that this ribbon strip is on the other side of this bar. And the reason for having that as straight as possible is you got to get that ribbon through that little hole right there. And it can be a bit of a challenge, but just take your time, don't rush it. Get your ribbon through there. Once it's through, everything should slide down. Okay, that lined up good. Now I'm going to insert my ribbon back onto the touchpad ribbon back into its proper placement. And slide it down in there. That's what that blue plastic's for. It gives you a little bit more pressure so you can push on it. Alright, now we got that on there. I'm going to go ahead and install the battery pack to hold this shell into place. We got some bulky fingers, so it's kind of hard to grab that screw. Alright, screw that in there. Don't tighten too tight, just get it snug. We're going to plug this battery pack back in. Make sure that your pins are lined up properly. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. There's a side of this that's smaller on one side compared to the other. And in the hole, you can see where the pins are. They're closer to the outside. So make sure you line those. Don't force it if it's not going to go. So make sure you line it up correctly. Don't put it in there backwards or upside down per se. Just rest your battery in there. Okay, now we can put the back on it. The back strip with the metal. Not the blue side. Goes towards the outside this way of the controller. The blue strip should be close to the battery pack. If you put it the other way, it probably will not make contact. I don't think it will make contact, so I've never tried it. I doubt it will make contact with the connectors on the inside, which means your light bar may not turn on. Okay, so that strip's in there. All I have to do now is put the back shell back on. properly seated in there. Looks like it went on pretty good. We're going to attach the screws. Make sure they line up properly. So this, again, you want to test your buttons, make sure they presses. I might have an issue with that a little bit, not much. May have to readjust it just a tad bit. Overall, they're working. This button is sticking a little bit, and that's because I put the rubber, I think, a little bit too high. I need to lower it down just a little bit, and that's not a hard thing to do, but it does work. It does press. It's just getting caught underneath of itself. But that's because of the placement of the rubber pad underneath, which I can and will fix this. But anyways, this is a modification. It actually doesn't look that bad. I like the way that looks. This is a Gen 5 controller, PlayStation controller, with a Gen 4 modified case, front shell to fit it. You can purchase these on ModFreakz.com. Just make sure you check out your Gen version before you purchase. I'll put the link in the description. It's modfreakz.com/pages/PS4 models. Just make sure you check out your version, and again, it is the model or the number right above where it says made in China. It's the 4 dash, whatever's there. Yours is going to be probably different. But everything seems to be functioning great. So that'll conclude our video for modifying this Gen 4. It didn't turn out too bad. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Leave all your messages in the comments below. And don't forget to like our Facebook and YouTube page. And you have a great day. Thank you.